Every day I wake up is another blessing. Every day I wake up is another blessing. Thankful every second, getting God's protection. I lost connection in the desert, I had no reception. But in that time alone, I probably learned 1,000 lessons. I used my time for introspection and some self-reflection, and analyzed a couple ways to conquer my depression. Everything doesn't happen the way we plan it to, but if we harvest energy, then we can plan it too. So take a look in my eyes, that's where the story lies. I'm telling truth, and that isn't often glorified. I'm showing up, fully present in the moment, realizing self-doubt is my only opponent. So now I'm focused and rolling, the energy is flowing, hoping I stay zoning and my catalog keeps growing. That's the motive, and I'm devoted. My destiny awaits, and I'm not going unnoticed.
Wake up every morning and respect the blessings. Yeah, we made it out, you know that this was destined. Death, pain, scars, loving, living reckless. Made it through the storm, yeah, that trip was hectic. Wake up every morning and respect the blessings. Yeah, we made it out, you know that this was destined. Death, pain, scars, loving, living reckless. Made it through the storm, yeah, that trip was hectic.
I won't lie to you, baby, I took some summers off, but now I'm back at work trying to cover summer's cost. Had a couple battles, some were won and some were lost, but I fought for my life, I had no other choice. I feel grateful that God gave me another chance, but I don't understand, I still don't fully understand. Lessons learned and feathers earned. You don't think it's possible until it's your turn. Now we fight like we got nothing left to lose. No one else on earth has been in our shoes. Some will consider it paying our dues, but now we rock these battle scars like tattoos.
Wake up every morning and respect the blessings. Yeah, we made it out, you know that this was destined. Death, pain, scars, loving, living reckless. Made it through the storm, yeah, that trip was hectic. Wake up every morning and respect the blessings. Yeah, we made it out, you know that this was destined. Death, pain, scars, loving, living reckless. Made it through the storm, yeah, that trip was hectic. Wake up every morning and respect the blessings. Yeah, we made it out, you know that this was destined. Death, pain, scars, loving, living reckless. Made it through the storm, yeah, that trip was hectic.
Welcome to the Hype It Up Show, the podcast where we explore the world of creative entrepreneurship, YouTubers, and all things hype worthy. I'm your host, John from whadafunk, and I'm excited to share with you some stories and insights from the most talented and innovative minds in the industry. Whether you're an aspiring creator, a seasoned entrepreneur, or simply looking to stay up to date with the latest trends and what's hype, this is the podcast for you. So get ready to be inspired, entertained, and hyped up as we deep dive into the world of creative entrepreneurship and beyond. So let's hype it up. I'm here today with Adam Parr from the Parrsitivity podcast. Welcome, Adam. Thank you for being here first and foremost. Let's get right into it. Who are you and what do you do? Just to let people know who you are right off the bat if they're not sure or just finding out about you.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure to be here, on your show. And, it's always great to connect with you. And yeah, my name is Adam Parr. I am the host of the Parrsitivity podcast. And it's a podcast that focuses on connecting with people, stories, and, delivering impact to, the listener and the audience. And, in my day job, I'm a health and well-being coach that helps people with their mental health and well-being and helping them back into employment in the UK. So that's, a little bit about me. And that I started the podcast in March 2020, like a few years ago.
Nice, nice. So how did you get the name the Parrsitivity podcast? How did you come up with that name?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I was playing around with names for a while, and I wanted to do a podcast for quite a while, and I was trying to think, something around positivity, and I was like, what rhymes with positivity, and how could I incorporate my name into the podcast, into the title? So I then kind of, was playing around with words, and I was like, my name's Paul, and I was positive, the positive podcast. And I went, no, that don't click. And then I just kind of it clicked with the positivity podcast. But I remember, for weeks thinking about the name and trying writing down different names, and that's how it kind of clicked.
That's really awesome. So it came pretty like from your a spin-off of your name.
Yeah.
I like that. So how do you find the guests for your podcast?
Yeah, I find the guests for my podcast through, reaching out on their Instagram profiles. I'll send them emails. I will go on their LinkedIn profile. I've, used even, I think, YouTube sometimes in the comments, interacting with people. I think the comment section's a big thing that, is a great way of networking with people, especially on Instagram or on LinkedIn. Asking people if they've got 10 minutes to touch base, explain, what it's about. And also, I've luckily, been in contact with some companies in America, which are like PR companies, and they've listened to the podcast, and they've had a guest list and will sometimes, funnel me, a few guests, to be on my show. So sometimes that happens every so often, which I'm really grateful for, or networking, with people I know, who will then say, I've got a great guest. And it works by, both ways. I'll network people that I know and things.
Hmm. So how did you get into podcasting?
I got into podcasting. I think I've always been interested in people. I have a deep passion connecting with people. I've always been a people person, really. Even at a young age, my mum said, when I was a baby, I'd be on, like, public transport, and I'd be trying to talk, trying to, communicate with people on the bus and stuff like that. Um, so I've always been interested in people. I've always worked um, in a job that serves people in some way. I used to work in restaurants. I used to work in hotels, clothes shops. Like now I help people who are unemployed. So I've always kind of been of service in some way and wanted to add value. So when COVID happened in 2020, I before that time I got into Joe Rogan and a few other podcasters. I was kind of like, this is pretty cool. And I kind of thought, maybe I could create something. And 2020 happened and COVID happened. And I think I made my podcast around February time in 2020, just playing around with it. And then when that happened in March, I was just like, it's the time I've got to do it. So it was, a time where I didn't have a job at the time. So I was like, what else can I do in my time? So I went all in with that, and I've kept doing it ever since, when I have time to.
So what exactly inspired you to start? Like, so I'm sure you had the idea in your head that you wanted to start it and whatnot, but what was the time where you were like, okay, this is the time that I'm going to put myself out there and start doing this thing? Because putting yourself out there, it's a big risk. It's a big thing to do. Just, being able to do that. So what inspired you to do that? When was the time where that happened?
I would say the time that happened, I think it was like early 2020. And I remember I kind of got into you know, prior to getting into it, I was kind of trying different things out in my life. And I went to university in the UK, or you guys call it college. Um, and that didn't work out. And I did this course for a couple of months, and I dropped out, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I was kind of like, I saw like coaching, and I was like, what's this? And got into coaching and did that. And then I think through that avenue of coaching, I kind of, was like, this is like, links in with personal development, working with people. And then, there are obviously podcasts that coaches have. And I found like Gary Vee, and I remember he was talking about just document content, just do it and put it out there. It doesn't matter, just kind of do it on your phone and just put it out there, whatever it is. And I remember like experimenting with video clips. I don't know how I would have things on my mind, uh, you know, just kind of in general life, and I would put it into these clips on my phone. And this is even before I posted anything. and I was lacking confidence in posting it. I was lacking confidence in, how I looked or how I'd come across, all of this kind of stuff, thinking about what other people are going to think. Um, so I'd do videos and then I'd delete it or I wouldn't put it out. And then, I just took the leap of putting out a video, trying, testing the water, and then experimenting with podcasting. And that kind of gave me that inspiration because I kind of saw, how he started out and what he was doing, Gary Vee and what other people are doing. And I was kind of thinking, well, if they've done it, what's stopping, me from doing it kind of thing. And then I just kind of, went from there.
How's the podcast grown from when you started till now? How has it grown? How has it changed from now till then? Because that was a couple of years now, and you have some, you got some more experience now. So how has it changed and grown since then?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, how it's changed and grown. I think it's kind of been, over time, but like a wave just kind of like taking form really. And I think, I just learning to be consistent with it over time. I mean, when I first started doing it, I didn't have a great deal of people following me. Uh, and the thing is behind, like followers and stuff. I think it's people sometimes get mixed up in that, and I think it's not about how many followers you have. It's about who listens and who follows. And I think that was a big thing for me because I think at the start I was like, oh, I need to get followers and all this. Whereas now, as I got into it, was I don't care how many followers I have. It's who follows you, um, and I'm really grateful for people who do support me in what I do. Um, but yeah, it's I think it's definitely taken off. I'm still learning. I'm still figuring it out. I'm still finding my way with podcasting. But it's I think it's definitely gained traction through people reaching out, through people emailing, through networking with people and people having an interest in it. Whereas when I first started out, I never thought anybody would email me or be interested or anything like that. So I'm really grateful. I'm really humble for people who do reach out and who do want to be a guest and things.
Why do you think it's important to take that risk, take that leap? Why do you think that's so important
And in terms of podcasting or just in general,
in general
yeah,
or podcasting, both?
yeah. I think I think it's important to take that leap, to take that risk, ultimately because that's how we grow. That's how we evolve. And you don't know, sometimes we will make things out in our head much bigger than what it actually is. Once you do it, all that anxiety, all those worries, and all those kind of irrational thoughts and beliefs, you know, begin to dissipate once you do it. And I think, you only grow and only move forward through taking risks in whatever avenue in life. And, it is hard. It is difficult. And you do go to a vulnerable place. But in that vulnerable place and in taking that risk is how you grow. And the thing is, you don't know who you're going to meet, who you're going to connect with, who you're going to impact. So by you sharing whatever it is you're going to talk about or post or do, you might connect with somebody who takes something away from it. And that's where I put myself is there's probably people listening to this, who I hope going to take something from it. So I'm not thinking that, it's not about me. It's about, the higher level of things.
I love that. I really love that. Has All right. So how has doing the podcast changed you as a person? If so, like how has it changed you?
Oh, I think massively. Yeah, I think prior to doing it, I used to kind of filter things out. I would kind of listen to what I wanted to hear. And at first it was a real, struggle and lesson for me because with podcasting, you have to listen to the guest. You have to tune into what's being said. So I really feel like, I've grown a lot in that aspect. I would listen, I'd filter things out. Whereas now, I can listen to probably 4, 5 different conversations happening in a room and really tune in. I think it really does that. I think I've grown in that way, being able to tune in and listen, active listen to somebody, but also, in myself, um, you know, consistency, patience, um, feeling vulnerable, pushing out your comfort zone, taking those risks, and not. Sometimes I never used to reach out to people to be a guest because I was worried what they might think or if they're going to say no.
Mm.
So then I would half type out an email, then delete it. Whereas now I just kind of do it anyway. Or so I in a setbacks as well. Like things might you might reach out to somebody, they might not send you a reply. Um, so I think I've kind of gained a lot of resilience in that aspect, but also I've learned a lot about myself, and learned a lot about other people, listening to their stories, their journey, and kind of think, seeing the world. I think when you talk to different, you must see this as well. When you talk to different people, um, you see different perspectives. You see their upbringing. You see where they've come from. You're seeing what they're doing, and it makes us think, well, if that has happened for that person and they've dealt with XYZ, then what is stopping me in doing this? So I think it gives us that big shift in perspective, but also it's really important to talk to a variety of different people. Yeah, I think there's a lot of growth in podcasting, and it's nice to add value to other people.
I agree with that. So you talking about upbringing. So what was your upbringing like? Were you like outgoing when you were in school? What were you like in your younger days?
Yeah, I was really active. I mean, I grew up in part of the UK called the East Midlands, like a town called Nottingham. You might have heard of like Robin Hood, so it's kind of the town of Robin Hood. And yeah, my upbringing, my childhood was great. My mum and dad, my family. I've always had my family. I'm really grateful for that. And at a young age, my mum and dad separated. I think I must have been like 3 or 4 years of age. They're friends today. They're still on talking terms. It's all okay. Uh, but yeah, my mum and dad separated. But yeah, upbringing was fine. I had a good childhood. I think when I was in school, I remember I used to people please a lot, like a hell of a lot. And that's if I understand it now, but back then, if I could go back and tell myself, like, I'd be like, don't do that. You don't need to do that. Whereas I just wanted to be liked. I'd have friends come over to my house. I'd be like lending them like games and, play with this. And I remember they'd be on the PlayStation and I'd be sat there watching and I'd be asking them, can I have a go? And it was mine. So I was, like that when I was in early secondary school, primary school. And then I kind of growing up, teenagers, hormones and all that, it's that was a wild time. And, I had a stepdad as well. And he I mean, I won't go too much into it, but he was a difficult character and that was hard. He my my brothers would say some crisps or potato chips in the cupboard. And he'd be like, they're not for you, that's for them. Little things like that. It was like, quite, a bit
Mm,
like emotional abuse kind of thing.
yeah.
So that was difficult. And then when I was in school, the I kind of got into the wrong crowd of people. I was quite an egotistical person. And I wasn't really thinking about where I was going. I was just kind of like being like, one of the popular cool kids doing stupid stuff. And wasn't thinking about where I was going. And then, just crazy stuff. Like I remember being in this group of kids, and they tell me to do stuff, and I do it just to impress them, and walk into the class late. Like I remember French class, I had to apologize to the teacher when I finished school because I just caused chaos, and I would just walk in late, throw my bag down, that kind of stuff.
Mm.
But yeah, I was in the wrong group of people, and then I had an accident when I was like 13 years old, And when I had that accident, it kind of gave me a wake up call and made me stop doing what I was doing. I stopped hanging around with certain people. I stopped doing certain things. I kind of lost that trust in myself and didn't really feel safe going out anymore. And I had to rebuild that trust back in myself. And yeah, in school, when I broke away from that group, they began to goad and challenge me. So
Mm,
then I would have fights and all that kind of palaver. Um, but because some of the teachers had seen me being egotistical and like full of ego, they just thought they didn't really what's the word? Some of the teachers are quite close knit, and they just thought, yeah, you're just one of those kind of people.
mm,
So that was difficult. So I kind of like, lost trust in myself. I was kind of losing trust in certain teachers. Um, so yeah, that was a difficult time in school. And the school was pretty rough that I was in. So I had kind of all these different things kind of going off all at once around the ages of about 14, 15.
So how were you like that? How were you like that after you were graduated? Were you changed at all, or were
Uh,
you about the same?
I think, yeah, I definitely changed a lot. Um, I mean, I had to take time off school because I had like PTSD from that accident I had. So I fell through like a roof. I fell through a glass panel on a roof at like 13, 14. I think I told you before. I can't remember. Um, and that happened. And then yeah, so I was in and out of school because I was obviously having therapy. I was you know needed time out, and I had to deal with that. But I then started going back into school, and I did my exams and finished. So yeah, I did change. I did change massively towards the end, but I think I wasn't thinking about my grades. I wasn't thinking about where I was going until like the very last kind of couple of months of school. Um, and then I feel like I kind of probably learned more when I left school. If that makes sense.
Mm, I definitely could agree with that. Do you have any mentors or anyone that you've looked up to while in this realm of podcasting?
Yeah, yeah, massively. I got into Joe Rogan. I think everyone's heard of Joe Rogan. Most people have. Because I saw how he started out, and then I was kind of like, well, you know, what's stopping me? Got into Gary Vee. I don't listen to him as much now. I think it's okay to change your role models. It's okay to change your mentors. I quite like Grant Cardone. I don't know if you've heard of Grant Cardone. He's like a speaker and he's into like real estate. Um, a good friend of mine who's been on the podcast is called Glenn Lundy. He's a speaker and he's got a morning show on Facebook. So he won the Great American Speak Off. Um, he's friends with Grant Cardone. So I've got a few people. I like Simon Sinek and Jason Silver. These are speakers. Tony Robbins. Who else do I like? There's someone else I like as well. But people close, people, not even people who aren't on the main stage and the media. People I've met through podcasting are big role models to me. You're a big role model to me. My
Thank you.
my, you're welcome. And my friend, Greg and Brian. I think you've seen some of the ex-military friends of mine in the states. They're massive role models for me, mentors. So it's people on a big scale, and then people who I've met through podcasting and networking. I think even my mom as well, um, and people in my family.
How many episodes have you recorded of your podcast? Because I know you've been doing it a while, and you how consistent were you with interviewing
Yeah,
people?
when I started out, I mean during like COVID, I mean I was doing. If I was looking on the timestamps today, I was doing sometimes 3 or 4 a day per day. So I was doing like 2 or 3. I think the most I did was 4. I don't know how I did that. Um, I think I did like from early in the morning throughout the day. So I was doing like a couple a day, every single day. And then now I try and do at least like one every. I mean, I work full time, 5 days a week, and then I've got girlfriend, family, go you know do gym and stuff. So I try and do at least like one or two, like a couple every 2 weeks. If I can get a couple in every 2 weeks or even more per week, then I'm happy. If I have the time, then I'll make the time. So I find that it's difficult when your life gets busier, but I'm always making the time to at least do a couple a month if I can. But so yeah.
Was it hard to transition from, not working and doing being able to have this free time to doing the podcast to, having to go to work, having more responsibilities? What was that transition like?
Yeah, it was massive. It was absolutely massive. And like you we get bad habits when if we don't, if we're out to sync, like when I was out to work and when lockdown was happening, I was going to bed at whatever time, getting up at whatever time sometimes. So it was a real shift, in routine, but also, allocating this. So when you're unemployed, you got loads of time on your hands. But when I was unemployed, I was making use of my time to do podcasting. Whereas now, I have to think way ahead and look at, okay, well, what does my week look like? What time have I got in between, seeing family, seeing my girlfriend, going to the gym, that kind of thing. So it's been a massive, massive shift, and I'm having to, do things in advance, a lot more. Uh, and also some days, I'm pretty tired after work or from after the gym. And now, if I don't feel 100% in my energy, then I won't do it because I have to listen to that, and I think that's an important thing because I've done them in the past where I've felt a bit burnt out, and I've done a podcast, and then the next day I've got a busy day ahead, and I feel like wiped out, and I feel a bit groggy. So yeah, I'm very mindful of my energy, if that makes sense, and my time. I think a lot more. So yeah, it's a big shift.
How do you know when is a good time to take a break, step away to, when you're feeling that burnt out feeling, how do you know when it's the right time to take the break or push through and keep it going?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's a good question. I think I have to be. I know myself. If I feel like more tired in my energy or like in my body at an earlier time, then it's like it's just like a reminder, like, okay, I just need to take an hour or two to myself, to read a book or to watch TV or do something like that. So I think if I'm feeling more tired, then you know around say 7 o'clock, which isn't like me, then I won't do anything. Like I won't do a podcast. But say I kind of feel a little bit tired, but I'm still able to kind of think, I'm going to post this, I'm going to do this, I'm proactive. Then I just kind of do it really. Like tonight, I feel fine, but I think it depends what I do in the week because I think I've got a lot of energy. Um, so this week I went, I've started training in Muay Thai, so I went there yesterday for the second time. Um, and then I went to the gym today. So I've kind of like, feel a lot more balanced. Whereas if I don't do those little tiny things or have those, little moments to myself, or, or if I don't, because I see my girlfriend at the weekend and we'll go for a walk, we'll do nice things. And that recharges, my batteries, seeing her doing nice things and watching TV and that, that helps. So it's all these little tiny things that kind of, come together that I think enable you to do things to the best of your ability, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's some great advice. Uh, so how many episodes have you actually
Oh
recorded? Do
yeah,
you know the amount?
I know it is probably around the 350 mark, maybe. I don't know off the top of my head, but I know it's probably at least 300 and something.
That's a lot of episodes. Wow. That's impressive. So, what are some tips for people who are getting into, doing podcasting or doing anything in general? What are some tips you could give them for staying consistent, staying, motivated to keep doing these things?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think the first point I would recommend is you know just start out by I downloaded Anchor, and Anchor's free. It's owned by Spotify. It's an app you can download to record podcasts. I would say download that, or even just if you don't want to download that straight away, practice recording. Whether that's video, whether that's audio, and you might practice just talking about something by yourself. I've done episodes where I've done things by myself, just talking about things, or have a conversation with someone. And if you're not too sure, you can try it out, play it back, listen to it, and see what you think. Let other people listen to it. I would say just start really, just get the ball rolling and just start, and look on Facebook, look at groups, and surround yourself with people who support you in it. And not everyone's going to understand it. Not everyone's going to agree with what you say or what you're doing. You've got to just kind of stay in your lane and just go for it really, and listen to yourself, and you'll find the right people along the way. So I think just start, um, look at what other people are doing. um, I think it's your marketing, your social media. Start playing around with that, and be yourself and be unique, and just get a piece of paper and pen, and write down some ideas around it. um, there's tons of I don't really look at any videos on YouTube. There's tons of videos on YouTube and advice. uh, what else I'm trying to think. What else? Yeah, just start playing around with it and just start posting content. I think that's the best way to do it.
Hmm, I agree. So what has been some of the challenges you have faced in doing your show?
Some of the challenges, I think time zones sometimes. Some people, I think if people are in Australia, that's been pretty difficult to work around. I did one the other night, with my friend, and I think it was around my 11 o'clock, and we did a podcast, and it was like her morning time or something.
Mm,
So I think uh, that staying on top of emails, um, editing content. So you do say an hour podcast, or I mean, I did one was about two hours and something, and so you got to when you're I think editing the podcast and finding clips to put together and making the time to do that, that can be difficult sometimes. I think you know thinking about you know topics to talk about, being different sometimes, being creative, making content for social media. Sometimes that can be difficult because sometimes I'll be like, I'm going to post something, I'm going to talk about something, um, and there's nothing there. But sometimes you have to go away, um, and reevaluate things. So I think it's many different things: emails, creating content, networking with people, and editing the content, uploading the content. Which I love all of it. I love the whole creative process. Um, and I think the big thing, being patient, because when you start doing it, you might people might think, oh well, I want to do it for money and I want to get paid and or sponsors. And the thing is, it takes time,
mm.
and that's something that I think is a challenge, is a big challenge. I wasn't very patient when I first started doing podcasting, whereas I think with podcasting, it's kind of I've learned to be patient, and I've learned to trust the process.
Yeah, I could see that. So how have you ever received any negative feedback or like backlash or any type of negative comments or anything like that towards any of the content that you've created?
Yeah, yeah, I've had negative comments on YouTube. I've had negative comments on TikTok. I've had
How do you deal with that type of negativity on something you worked hard for and created and put yourself out there? How do you deal with that? And what is some tips for other people who don't know how to deal with that?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. I think, at first, I think when I first, got a few comments, I kind of like, it felt a bit shit, it wasn't great. But then I was like, well, that's just their opinion. And that's not, the reality of the situation. People can think what they want. And also, I don't know that person. I'm probably never going to meet that person. So why let someone that you don't know, don't will probably never meet, you know, impact a day, a week, however long of your life or however many hours when you're never going to meet them. And that's just their opinion. And the thing is, half the time, the people who are saying that they might not even be posting content themselves. So, and you know yourself and you know why you're doing it. So it doesn't matter, what they say really. And that can take a lot. And but it's about, knowing yourself and why you're doing it.
Yeah.
And don't take it, to heart too much. I mean, I used to work in a restaurant with chefs saying all kinds of me, so I'm probably a bit thick-skinned with people saying things.
What are some memorable moments or advice that was given to you on your show by some of your guests? What is some stuff that has stuck with you? It's a hard one to think back on,
Yeah, this is a really good question though.
but what is the first thing that comes to your mind as something as a memorable thing um from a guest that you've had on?
I had a good friend called Glenn Lundy, as I mentioned before, and it's always stuck with me. And people, I've had loads of different guests on my show, and they've said loads of great things and shared loads of great insights. But I think one thing that stuck with me and always will is this Greg, who's a speaker, mentioned about being a caterpillar. So we talked about the perspective basically of life, and we start off as like a caterpillar, on the surface, and caterpillars they become butterflies. But prior to that, the perspective of the caterpillar only sees what's in front of them on the ground. Like we only see what's kind of going on the ground through life, and as they go into that cocoon, they're uncomfortable and it's tight and it's hard and they're in that enclosed space for I don't know how long, but a period of time, and then they become this butterfly. And as they become the butterfly, they're flying around and they can see, you know, things that they didn't see when they were the caterpillar. And it's that kind of stage in life that we go into these situations, with like this, and then we go through uncomfortable, difficult, challenging times. And when you come through that, you come out of that challenge, that uncomfortable time with a different perspective, seeing things that you didn't see, prior. Um, so that's something that always stuck with me, and that's something I think about a lot whenever I try something new, or if it's difficult or things are difficult.
What is some advice um what is some advice say for someone to what is some advice for someone who is trying to have a podcast and find guests on there? What is some advice you'd give them to find guests?
Yeah, no, I think there's a really good question. I think there's different ways of finding guests. So I think, there are groups you can join. There's with the internet, we're an amazing time. So there's networking with people through LinkedIn. I found that quite helpful. Reaching out to people, and emailing them, and I think there are websites like, is it Audrey, Audry, and it's a website where you can connect with people who have podcasts to be a guest, and vice versa. There's another website called Guestio, which I've used sometimes, where you can be a guest on people's podcasts or they can be on yours. So you create your profile. Also, just DMing people on Instagram. That's something I've done loads of times. I think I must have done that with you. I think I did that with you, or I we met in the comments on that D Rock post.
I think so. Yeah.
Networking with people in the comments on Instagram, and DMing people, email people, just reach out to them. There are Facebook groups that I've seen where it's like they help you find guests and network you through that. So there's some good ways of finding guests, but you just gotta reach out. I mean, the worst someone's gonna say is no. And even if they say it, there was one person I had on my show. I asked him about 20 different times. I said, "Can you be a guest? Can you be a guest?" And then he ended up saying yes. So you knock on the door enough times, you might, get the answer you want.
That's a gem right there. That's a good gem right there for everybody. So I want to know, what's your process when you are getting ready to do a podcast? Do you like, how do you set it up? Like, do you get your questions ready beforehand? Is it like, what is your process in starting your doing your show?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's definitely changed. It's definitely, you know, kind of evolved since I've been doing it more. When I first started out, I literally would go in there with no questions at all. I don't recommend that. I'm not saying, everyone works differently, but I was learning the ropes. Um, and I would just go in there and just talk and just have an idea in mind, or say to guests, "Do you want to talk about this topics?" and then see where it goes. Um, Sometimes that can work, and that can be, a great podcast. But I think it depends on who the guest is, and I think it depends what area that you want to push it down, and how deep you want to go. Because it's very easy to have a conversation with someone and forget what you wanted to talk about if you haven't got it written down, and you can get lost in the moment of a conversation, and then what you had is gone. But the beauty of podcasting is that as it's flowing, things sometimes might come up for you, and you just ask it, and then you go down another avenue. The way I do it is, I will research the guest, what they're about. Maybe they have an education, maybe they have um, work, experience in a certain field. Um, any accolades they might have, what they do. Research their product if they've got a product, and show, in what they do. And I will make bullet points on a piece of paper of the area, um, in mind of the conversation. And sometimes I'll even have bullet points, but things will just come up for me, and I'll ask it in the moment.
So so that's how you prepare for the interview part of it. How do you prepare for yourself? Do you like get zen? Do you like drink some tea? Make sure you eat something beforehand? Like, what? How do you like prepare for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think what I tend to do is, I mean, like right now I've got a glass of water, but usually I'll have, like, a glass of water. Um, what else do I prepare? Yeah, I think I just kind of ground myself. So if I'm going to interview someone, I kind of, just, relax, clear my head. If I say I'm busy, or I've been rushing around, it's you've got to watch that kind of, you need that focus, and you have to watch your energy. So I kind of like, just clear my head. I'll get a coffee, or I'll get a cup of tea, as we say in the UK. Um, and a glass of water, and just kind of like, just listen to some music. I think, prior to going into it, um yeah, and just, kind of relax.
So how does it feel to be being interviewed instead of being the interviewer?
Yeah, that's another good question. I think it's I enjoy it, and I think when I first started, going on other people's podcasts, I used to feel quite nervous. um I think when you're on another person's podcast, there's like an element of vulnerability, um, which I'm okay with. Um, but I think it's a good reflective practice, if that makes sense, because being a host of a podcast, you have to know what it's like to be a guest on a podcast. So I think that's really important. And it's a bit like, yeah, I think you have to put yourself in that place.
Yeah. So what do you think makes a good show or a good podcast? What makes you want to watch something, or what makes you think like this is a good show that I'm like that you're creating right now? What makes it a good, what are some things that make it a good show?
I think there's different things that make it a good show. I think you know it can be entertainment. I think if it's entertaining, if the person is coming from a genuine, real place and wanting to add value, if they've had an interesting upbringing, interesting story, um, it's interesting. I'm quite a deep person, so anything that's quite deep, then I'm into it. So I find sometimes people. I think it's important as well to have certain conversations that people sometimes may be afraid of talking about, or I mean, like in terms of like like mental health, in terms of like men's mental health, in terms of things that society deem to be a certain way. I think people who are opening up about things is something that gets me listening, or society and that kind of stuff. It's a whole variety. I mean, I know you. I'm a big fan of Joey Diaz, and he's very entertaining, and he's very quite raw sometimes. So different things kind of I think are important and stand out to me.
So I just want to let everyone know who's watching right now. We're live on YouTube right now, and if you're watching live on YouTube, you can ask a question for Adam in the form that's in the in the chat. So if you have a question for Adam, we're going to be answering the questions at the end if you are watching live right now. Um this is an interesting question for you. How do you see the future of Chat GPT, AI coming into the play of podcasting and just in general? How do you see that coming? What do you think of it?
Yeah, I find it pretty. I think it's a double edged sword. I find it pretty amazing and awesome, but I think it also scares the shit out of me. Um, I think it's when I say it scares me. I think it's because I never thought that would be possible. That when you see things that are like that, I find it it's you kind of think, okay, what's the next step? Where's it going next? But we're here to evolve. We're here to grow. We're not here to stay the same. So I think it's good that there is that growth in AI. I mean, the things that blow my mind are those AI art where the computer recognizes images and creates an image of what you type it in. So I think in podcasting, I haven't heard about it too much. I've not gone down those rabbit holes too much. I've seen the chat BT, someone was talking about that today, where you can have a conversation with basically a bot. That's pretty cool. Um, yeah, it's fascinating but scary, I find.
What do you think about the art, the chat, the AI art?
I think it's mint. I saw one which it showed you is it villains from Batman
Hmm.
or superheroes. I saw that one and I was like, holy hell, that's crazy.
Yeah, we were looking at that too. It's pretty crazy. It's definitely pretty crazy. So, what do you think the future holds for in podcasting in general? What do you see anything crazy or different happening now that there is these tools of, AI?
Yeah, you know, I think what we're doing now, is pretty amazing, that we're able to connect across the world and we're able to stream to different platforms. But I think like also it's I think the way it's going is that we might put these maybe glasses on or have something built into us where, you know, was it Google Glass? It's like a mirror
Hmm.
and it looked like the person was actually, you know, in front of them. So I think it will kind of go to that level where we're talking on a screen now, but I think it'll be to a level where you'll have like a glass panel, and you'll be in that glass panel like you're standing across from me. So I think that's an avenue where I think it will slowly over time go, which would be interesting.
Yeah, I could see definitely something like that definitely happening and being, just something totally different that people wouldn't be able to expect to happen. You know what I mean? Something like you wouldn't be able to imagine
Mm.
type of stuff. So you interviewed a lot of people from a lot of different places. Do you see a lot of similarities in people from different places, a lot of differences in different places? What's it like? You've interviewed people from all over the world.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I've seen a lot of differences, and I think a lot of similarities. Um, I it made me laugh because I did a podcast with a guy, and he was in is it Nashville, state in America, and he was talking about like where he lives, and he was saying, I don't go out of my my circle. He said, so I think I remember him saying like this is my county line. I don't cross that county line from Nashville to wherever. I don't know what's near Nashville, but you're in America. You shouldn't. but um, but yeah, he that was interesting because I was like, well, he's quite happy, where he lives in that state where he lives. I find that really interesting. But yeah, I see like lots of lots of differences and similarities. I think I connect really well with most people. Like most people, I've had my podcast. So I'm just trying to think differences, similarities. In terms of what would you mean? Like
So like way of thinking
okay,
um or what they do in general
yeah,
um stuff like that.
yeah. I see similarities. Like in people in the states to the UK.
Yeah.
I think there's a very close bond, between people in the UK and America. Um, I think you know Western societies were quite similar, but also I think I've spoken to people in India who are on a different level, if that makes
Mm,
sense. Very, very, very spiritual.
yeah.
Very spiritual people. Um, so yeah, I think that's a really good question. It's quite a hard question.
Yeah, it is a hard question because I'm sure you're like trying to think back to all the people
Yeah.
you have interviewed before. Uh, so, so what do you see as the future for your podcast and what you're doing? What do you see in the future for that?
Yeah, I mean, my dream would be to, work for myself and, to have my podcast, as a business and to, stream to, have, sponsors, that kind of thing. And, I'm in the process of looking at like, merchandise for my podcast at the minute. So I'm looking at doing that. So it's just getting my ducks in the row in the right way, so to speak, and learning what step to kind of take first. But I would love to have it as a business to do this is as a job and to constantly provide value to other people. That's something that I dream of doing. But at the minute I'm gonna, as I said before we start recording, I'm gonna start streaming once I've uploaded my clips to YouTube, and I'm excited to see what's gonna come of that.
So, if someone has never seen your podcast before, what is? what is the best way to summarize what they would be seeing when for their first time? So so we could get some of the people in here to check it out who are listening now, or if they've never heard it before. What is what's tell them a little bit about like more of who you interview and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah. No, the basically my podcast. I've connected to people from all different backgrounds, from different places around the world, and it's mainly, to connect to people's story, connect with them and what they do. Why people do what they do, and connecting with their journey. And we've all got a journey, we've all got a story, and it's interesting to hear people's stories from all different places. So that's kind of what the podcast is about. But I've done podcasts on things that didn't relate to that. I've done podcasts that I did a podcast with a Ukrainian soldier, and he talked about the situation in Ukraine. I did one with my friends talking about the current situation in society. So it's a bit of a mix, really. Like, but it's mainly connecting people and their story.
Yeah, so you guys definitely have to check out the Parrsitivity podcast if you haven't yet. Uh, I've been a guest a couple times on the show. That's how me and Adam have connected. So I just wanted to let people know more about it, and so they could find out more from themselves. So, what is your favorite part of doing the podcast?
My favorite part of doing the podcast. Wow, that's a good question. I love connecting with the guest and getting into you know who they are and what they do, and their journey, and that's exciting. And then providing providing that content to the audience. And I love that creative process of getting the clips and then editing it and uploading it. I quite I find it quite relaxing. I quite enjoy doing that. But yeah, connecting with the guest, and you know connecting with the audience, and having meeting new people as well.
What is the part that you dislike the most?
Dislike the most. Um,
What's the hardest
w-
part?
yeah, I think the hardest part, what I've disliked the most, is I think probably what I'm currently doing. I've been doing podcasts the past couple of years, and as I said to you, that I haven't backed up any of my podcasts. I've just been keeping in my Zoom cloud. So I've been in the process over the past couple of weeks of saving all my episodes and getting them onto my computer so I can upload them. That's very tedious because you have to do it one by one.
Hmm.
Um, what else? I'm trying to think. That's a good question. Yeah, I think that's really hard. And sometimes I think hashtags. I find hashtags to be pretty difficult when posting podcast content. Trying to be creative and wording things differently, that can be a challenge.
Mhm. So, how do you feel about having to create content constantly, and sometimes with these social media channels not really putting the content that the creators are making out there? Like, how do you feel about that? You know?
Yeah, it's difficult. It is it's it's always a challenge. And the thing is, I think I don't tend to look at I don't tend to compare myself to other people and what they're doing. I will kind of just do what I'm doing, and I'll I'll support other people and what they do. But I think everyone's so different, and everyone has their own style. I think you have to just be be yourself, do what you think's right.
I like that. All right, I got a couple more questions. Then we're gonna let the people who are watching live right now ask their questions. If you haven't asked your question yet, you can do that right now. But couple. All right, this is gonna be a hard question, I think. If you had to tell someone to listen to only one of your shows, they could only listen to one. Which episode would it be to watch?
Jesus Christ.
I like to put the hard
I
question at the end of the show just to get
yeah.
everyone thinking a little
Mm,
more.
okay. Let me
Don't
just
worry, it
think.
gets easier after that.
Yeah. I yeah, I think the podcast episode, if I could pick one, would be um God, trying to trace back all
I
this
mean,
episode.
besides the one that
Yeah.
I was on.
Yeah,
I'm just
the
playing.
one
I'm just
you
playing.
the one we was having a blast not when we were on.
No, we
I
did, but
and
I'm just
I'm just
messing.
trying to think of like yeah, I had one with my mum. I had my mum on the podcast.
That's awesome.
And she was on with Greg and Brian, who host the Left the Greg podcast. So I think that's a really fun one because I've never really had my mum on the podcast,
Yeah,
and that was quite an interesting dynamic. To have two of my friends from the states who've got a podcast and to have my mum on it. And
that's really
my
awesome.
my ex-military mates, Greg and Brian, they just took the piss out of me really for like a bit. And then, so yeah, that was interesting. And they've got a lot to share. They've got a lot of hell of a lot of experience. Greg was in the US Army. He was a hostage negotiator for the Detroit police. And Brian was a sniper in the US Marines, and they work together to help businesses and companies. Um, they sort of like human behavior pattern recognition, so they help business with security. So they have a lot to talk about, and that was quite interesting.
That's really really interesting. I definitely we need to check that one out. All right, so easy. We're doing like a speed round, and then we'll
Okay.
get into the questions. All right, 5 favorites. Your favorite movie.
Oh damn. Pulp Fiction.
Second person to say that. Favorite color right now.
Uh, Red.
Your favorite cartoon growing up.
Oh damn. I would say Dragon Ball.
Your favorite TV show.
The Sopranos.
And your favorite place you've ever been.
Um, it's got to be New York.
Nice. um so where before we get into the questions, where can people find you and find out more about you and watch your show and listen to your show and all that?
Yeah, no, awesome, man. Yeah, you can listen to my podcast. It's called the Parrsitivity Podcast, and it's on all streaming platforms. It's on, I do regular live sometimes on Instagram. So I'm on Instagram, all the social media accounts. So yeah, I'm on Spotify, all the streaming services. I've also got a Facebook group um, as well. So it's the Parrsitivity Podcast new. And then I've just literally started a Discord group today. So you can get me on Discord, which I'm going to be experimenting with.
Nice.
Um, so yeah, I'm kind of on social media. On the streaming, it's the Parrsitivity Podcast, and then my Instagram is Parrsitivity94. So that's kind of across the board.
Awesome. So we put your links in the description and the
Yeah.
chat right now. So everyone give my friend Adam Parr a follow, please. You'd be doing me a favor. So go do that. So all right, first question. I knew this question was going to I knew this question was going to be on there because this is an ongoing thing on our
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
show. This is a question from A&T Won't Stop.
Mm.
Have you ever had stargazy pie? If so, how do you like it?
What is that?
What? Oh man,
Is it in the
no.
UK?
It's
Is
a
it in the
U okay.
UK?
It's a UK thing.
Stargazy pie.
Stargazy pie.
All right, let me
Oh
Stargazy pie.
man, the chat is about to go crazy right now on YouTube.
Have a look.
Wow.
Stargazy pie. Oh, right.
Do they call it
Okay.
something different where you are?
Oh, that's like a fish cottage pie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had cottage. Yeah, I've had I call it yeah, I've had that
What do you
before.
what do you
Shepherd's
call it?
pie. We call it, I think, either shepherd's pie or cottage pie. It's one of the two.
How'd you like it?
It's I'm not a big fan of seafood at the minute,
Mm.
so I don't. It's quite filling. It's very very filling. You feel like you're gonna fall over if you eat it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, I knew that question was gonna be on here because that's an ongoing thing on our shows. All right. Let's see. The next question is from Steve O. What football team do you support? And Walkers or Pringles?
Ooh.
So it's two separate questions, I think.
Yeah. So the football team I support, kind of, I'm torn really because my dad's a Scouser and he's from Liverpool. So my dad's from Liverpool, but I'm originally from Nottingham. So Nottingham Forest are in the FA Premier League now. But I think I've always supported Liverpool.
And Walkers or Pringles?
I would say Walkers.
Um, um
I like
that's a chip, a potato chip.
what Walkers
I don't know
or.
what does the question
Okay.
mean.
Okay, so Pringles are crisps, or you
Oh,
call them
okay.
potato chips, in a long tube. They're like
No, no, I know what Pringles are. What is
the
Walkers?
okay, so Walkers are a company that make crisps, and they make different loads of different types of crisps.
Gotcha.
But I find Pringles very salty.
Mm, me too. All right, Steve. Oh, there you go. Next question. The sheriff. If this is from the sheriff of Nottingham, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. How did you
It's
fall
fun.
through a glass window? They want to know.
Okay, so cut long story short, I was messing around with friends, and we were doing something called parkour, like kind of messing about and running around. And there was like a church, and it had 3 layers to it, and it was during the summer holidays, and there was not a lot going on, you know.
Mm,
So I remember being on a Sunday, I'm pretty sure, and there was 3 layers to the building. So we climbed up, and then we climbed up on the other level, and we were just kind of being kids and being stupid really. And I wasn't really thinking about what I was doing. And I remember my girlfriend at the time, she went to the shop, and for some reason I stood on this, you know, which was the glass panel, was about this. I stood on top of the glass panel so I could lift myself up to see, if I could see where she was.
mm,
But I didn't actually think or look at the glass. I just saw, oh, this will boost me up, and then I stood on it, and then it just popped, and I fell about 13, 14 feet down and landed on a small sink that you want, like a basin you wash your hands in. And yeah, I had like lacerations. I cut my arm open and all of that business. So I initially thought I was going to die when that happened, because there was so much blood, you know.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's what happened. But anyway, I mean, to cut a long story short with that, phoned an ambulance. My friends kind of got me out of the place. Um, and then this guy walked past and took my top off and tied it around my arm. And ambulance took me back to hospital, checked me over, and did all the checks. And they said I'm very, very lucky to, be alive. So they could put these little stitches on me, and then I'm very, very, very fortunate to still be here. Um, Ended up having anxiety, PTSD, depression from the trauma.
Yeah.
From that, luckily, I'm okay, and I've worked through that.
Yeah.
I don't have that anymore.
That's
Um,
good.
but yeah, that's kind of what happened and why.
That's
You know,
crazy,
it's,
man. That's so
but
crazy.
but I think if that hadn't have happened, I wouldn't be doing this.
Mm.
I don't think I'd be
That's
doing this if that hadn't have happened.
why is that?
I mean, I say, well, I probably would be doing it, but I don't think I'd be able to do it. Because I've been through a lot in
Mm.
terms of mental health. I probably wouldn't be doing the job I'm doing if I hadn't
Gosh,
experienced that kind of thing.
gotcha. That's crazy. Well, I hope they're happy they got their answer.
Yeah.
All right, next question. Let's see. This is from Grizz. What is your favorite piece of advice you like to give people?
Hmm. I think the best advice I'd like to give people is, to don't be afraid of taking risks. Um, you know, be yourself and, you know, always try and do your very, very best. And, if you think something's possible, you know, you'll find a way to make it possible. There's nothing stopping you from achieving or doing something if you really want to put your mind to it. For an example, I failed at maths. I got an F in maths, hated maths, had to retake my maths to get into university or
Mm.
college. I had to retake these different exams and failed and failed. And I never thought in a million years I'd be able to do that. But I put my mind to it and I applied myself to do that thing. And I think, anyone can do that with whatever we apply ourselves to if we're willing to show up and put in the work.
I love that. I feel hyped up right now. I hope everyone else does. We have another question from Grizz. He says, "What's your favorite thing to do to stay positive?"
Favorite thing to do, stay positive. Um, well, positive. Favorite thing to do. I like to, listen to podcasts of other people. I like listening to Joe Rogan. I like, reading. I like walking my dogs, spending time with family, my girlfriend. Um, I think all these things kind of come together, networking and talking to my friends overseas like yourself.
Mm,
I love podcasting. I love connecting with people. It's what goes on in my background in my head sometimes when I'm at work.
mm.
Um, yeah, it helps me a lot.
We have another question. What is your favorite sandwich?
A
These
favorite
are the
sandwich.
important
Yeah,
questions. We need to know more
yeah.
about you.
Um, favorite
Like,
sandwich.
what's your
That's a good question.
go-to when you're like,
You know,
do you have do you have delis over
yeah,
there?
yeah.
Like,
We
you gotta
have
say,
we have
yeah. So,
delis and we have
so like,
bakeries.
what is
Favorite
your
sandwich.
go-to?
I I do like my girlfriend makes these things called toasties,
What's that? I
which
want to know more.
so it's like you get a sandwich with the bread and the cheese. You put the cheese, so two slices of bread, cheese. You melt the cheese, so that you get like a George Foreman grill kind of thing.
Mhm.
So you do that with a sandwich and you melt it. And I quite like Marmite, if you know what that is.
We've heard about it, but we still haven't tried it,
Right.
unfortunately.
So I usually get my girlfriend to make them, and she'll put like a bit of Marmite with the cheese, which is very controversial. But
Is
I
it?
I quite yeah I quite like cheese and Marmite toasties or cheese and bacon toasties.
Mm, I
Um, but
I gotta try that.
but yeah, sandwiches I like tuna sandwiches with cucumber.
I like that too. All right, another question: night owl or early bird?
Hmm. I would say I'm quite an early bird, really. I mean, I get up for work around like 7 o'clock, 7:30. When I have to go to the office, so I can be up and ready to go in half an hour. Um, you know, so yeah, I'd say early bird, really.
All right, this question is from Craig Williams. This our homie Craig. Craig says, "Thank you from a Cornish man here. Which do you spread first, jam or cream? Like to hear what you would say living." All right, so that's one question. He
Yeah,
has
yeah,
another
yeah.
question after. Which
Okay, cool.
which do you
So
spread first, jam or cream?
okay, so what I'll explain in this what is basically, I mean, to put it into perspective, you're in New York, but then you've got New Jersey. So in where I live in Cornwall,
Uh-huh.
across the bridge, there's a place called Devon, and people in Devon put the cream on or the jam on differently to people here in Cornwall.
What do you mean by cream? What is that?
So it's like clotted cream. So it's obviously made from milk, and it's kind of is it pasteurized. It's like a sticky. I'll send you a picture of it. It's like a sticky
Like cottage
consistency.
cheese?
Mm, it's it's like I don't know what, because I'm not in America. I don't know what you'd have similar. But yeah, it's like you like butter, like it's like a really
Oh,
thick
like
kind
cream
of
cheese.
like a
Cream cheese.
creamy kind of like
Yeah, yeah.
thick
Okay,
butter.
cream cheese. That's what we call it
And
here.
yeah, but it's I tend to put on the jam first and then the cream, but I don't know which is the right way. But I know a lot of people don't like that. I think they look at you funny if you do like it the other way.
Oh, that's what the other part. It says like to hear what you have to say. Living now here in Cornwall/Devon. So you're saying it's different from Cornwall to Devon?
Yeah, they do it differently. I think they put the clotted cream on first and then the jam because there was a real like debate about it. And
All
my
right, this
girlfriend's family are Cornish as well, so they kick off if I do it wrong.
really. This is a question from me. I just thought of it. What's the right way to make tea?
Oh geez. I tend okay, so I quite like something called oat milk. So
Yeah.
it's milk, but it's like made from oats.
Hmm.
It's quite creamy. You get like the right one. So I tend to stew it. So I put the tea bag in, boil the water, put the hot water in it. Move it around with a spoon. Like, see, there's an art to it. So I do it about 8 to 10 times, and then leave it. I quite like it quite strong, and then I'll take it out. Before I take it out, I squeeze the tea bag, so I get like most of what's in it, and then I put like a few dashes of oat milk and stir it. I don't have any sugar. I don't have any honey in it. I just have it as it is, and I do the same kind of with coffee. Just
I like that. No, because everyone was asking in a previous show about the right way to make tea. All right, one last question. I think. What's your favorite hobby?
wow. Hobby. I would say I really enjoy going for walks. I love, I'm very active anyway, but I love going for walks with, my dogs, with my girlfriend. I'm very fortunate where I live because we've got like, beaches nearby and there's, country, woodland walks with trees and stuff. So, I love, I could go for, a walk every single day and not get bored.
That's awesome. All right, let me check if there's any other last questions. Um, First, I want to say, guys, the Hype It Up show is actually now available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. So if you're on there, you could go back and listen to this. If you're on YouTube, you could watch it on there, the actual video. Um, First, I want to say, yo, Adam, thank you so much, first and foremost, for being a guest on our new show, Hype It Up. Really, really appreciate you coming through and spending time with us and letting people know more about who you are and what you do, and to not only hang out with us, but like inspire everybody listening. Not only myself. See, I'm selfish. I actually do this show just for me to get hyped up. Sorry, everybody watching. Nah, but for real, like I do this show so to get hyped up for me and everybody watching who could relate. You know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
I want to just say thank you for your time.
No, no, you're most welcome, and it's always a pleasure, to connect with you and your audience. And, I'm really blessed and grateful, to be able to do this. And, it's a blast. It's a blast every time. And, I look forward to next time.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to say thank you to everybody who watches the show live on YouTube. If you don't know, we do the show live on YouTube, and you could ask your own questions live while the show is going on, and then we ask our guests those questions. So uh I just want to say thank you everyone who tuned in live during the show, and thank you again, Adam. So where can they find you once again last time, just to let
Yeah.
everyone know where they can find you, what's next
Yeah.
for the Parrsitivity podcast?
Yeah, sure. So you can find me on the all the streaming platforms at the Parrsitivity Podcast, and then on Instagram, Parrsitivity 94. Same on TikTok, and I'm on LinkedIn as well. My name is Adam Parr, Parr. Yeah, and what's next? I'm going to be streaming, live streaming at some point, and I've got going to get the merch out this year. So yeah, stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy.
Yo, thank you again so much. Really, really appreciate all the support for real from everybody watching and listening. And not only that, but for you for hanging out with us. And we'll catch you on the next Hype It Up show. Thank you guys so much. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.